the most traveled folks have a very keen awareness of the biospirit of Western kind, and that there are very different biospirits uh, among the races, and that they can travel around the world to countries that were created and are maintained and envisioned by people with different biospirits. They can appreciate the things that are there that are worthy of appreciation, and yet they still feel that it's something alien to what is their instinct. And then when they return, and everybody refers to this the same way, they return, they say they have a frame of reference. Now they can actually identify the biospirit of the West. Now they can see it, whereas before traveling to all of these different countries, they had a difficult time really seeing the differences. When our brothers and sisters travel abroad, and they go and they see these. They try. When I say travel abroad, I don't mean other Western countries, but I mean what are effectively, and this gives a hint to the direction I'm going, Westernized non-white countries, because there isn't a non-white country on planet Earth that has not been heavily influenced by Western civilization and who and what we are for various reasons. And so what would these countries actually look like? What would their people, I think we've almost been, I guess, if you wanted to take a view from Mars down on planet Earth, perhaps history has been robbed of what these different non-white biospirits, what they would have actually looked like. Maybe it wouldn't be the same sort of technology. Maybe it wouldn't be the same way of life at all. When we go back in history, and we look at recorded history, the furthest back we go, I mean, we're having contact with non-white cultures, non-white peoples, and influencing them from all of our travels and victories and combat and the like, influencing everything that they do. And so what ends up happening is when our brothers and sisters travel abroad, they end up in a country that is a non-white country, and then they see the pieces of it that look familiar to them, and those pieces are really just our influence. It's the same thing that happens when you look. I had a conversation with a guy, and I just very briefly will say, many years ago, and he said he was making the argument about being attracted to a non-white woman, and I argued that his attraction for her was actually for the features in her that were clearly given her by way of white ancestors. She was not fully non-white. So he disagreed, and I went and found a photograph of a great example of a woman of that, not that race, not someone who was one of their ugliest members by no means, but was one of their absolute more attractive members. And I said, well, what do you think of this one? And he immediately knew that he had lost the argument, that indeed he was attracted to the Western white features in the non-white woman that he was attracted to. And it wasn't the absence of those things. It was the presence of those things. So, yeah, I think this happens all the time. And I think we need to mention it to our brothers and sisters, that when they go abroad, they see things and they say, it's just about the same. It's just, there's really no, well, that's because Western kind went all around the world and has influenced everything. That's why. That's why there's so much similarity. Who knows what these places would have looked like? They might have looked beyond our wildest fantasies had we had no contact with them whatsoever. This is a community in which this is a life or death struggle in which you must participate. When you are engaged in the practice of going free, you're not there to just be dazzled by Intellectual Embargo's videos and nod assent the entire time and think, wow, that guy's really got it. He's got it figured out. He's right. And then you go back and you just go through your life producing and consuming. We're out of time. The anti-whites have won. They dominate all of Western civilization. There's nothing they don't dominate. and the nodes of power in their hands are so many, the percentage is so high, there is no hope of any sort of reclamation by any of the means that has been used or that have been used in the past. We need to reclaim our destiny by way of reclaiming our identity. And this is going to be through one, primarily a psychological defense to the psychological warfare that is waged against us, and two, the creation of our own culture. We will be that juxtaposition scenario where our brothers and sisters, ordinary men and women and children out there across the West, they look out at the decay, they look out at the corpse of Western civilization, and they say, well, what is left here that is good? And then they see us. And as a consequence, since we are projecting as best we can who and what we are biospiritually, instinctually, and that we are a movement of love, hope, and redemption, that they will come to us. And by changing the milieu, changing the environment in which the conversation about what's going to take place with anything in the world, by changing that environment, we recapture our destiny. And we have demonstrated that now more times than is countable. We continue to have victory after victory. We continue to have people who object to us and oppose us, speaking out, panicking, freaking out about the success that we're having. There's a group of people, they've figured it out, and they're changing things, and they don't like that. And not only have we figured it out, this is purely out of intelligence and our will, because we don't have the money. We're not printing the money. We don't have any multi-millionaire financial backers or anything like this to make these things happen. So we are actually doing this with intelligence and will. That's something that will go down in the history books. Will you be in those pages? Well, if you're just watching what we're doing here and what Intellectual Embargo does, no one will remember your name. The only way you're going to be remembered is if you contribute, if you participate. What might your participation look like? What might it look like today versus what might it look like 5 years from now? Well, if you're not doing much right now, something you can do right away is you can become a subscriber to all of Intellectual Embargo's channels. And then you can go out to First Amendment groups, Second Amendment groups, constitutionalist groups, libertarian groups, MAGA groups, America First groups. You can go everywhere with this man's content, all of the time and effort that he's put in, and share these videos like there's no tomorrow. And when you do, of course, remember to use the 5 key concepts when you speak with the people. You don't have to be actually engaged in the practice of going free. If you don't have time for that, you're still don't know whether or not you want to take that leap, make sure you say anti-white, anti-whiteism, anti-white narrative, Western kind, white erasure. Those are the 5 key concepts. You'll be doing a world of good, but you need to get started. Magnify what Intellectual Embargo has done by subscribing to him on all of his platforms and networks, and then sharing his work everywhere. Otherwise, no one will remember your name.